Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in today. This is Ben Jones from Batdorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters. I'm hanging out here in my coffee workshop. I don't know if you can hear the rooster in the background. He says good morning as well. Today is the 31st of August, the last day of August 2020. There you have it. It's the last day of the month, first day of the week. Last Friday, I made some cold brewed coffee. Kind of went out of my own, I don't know if you call it the comfort zone, but my standard realm of coffee. Today, we're going to do that again. We're going to do something that is outside of my personal normal routine. I'm going to make an AeroPress using the original recipe. I'm going to make two small changes to it, but we're essentially going to follow Alan Adler's original recipe on the AeroPress. So, what I've done before y'all saw me, I took a single paper AeroPress filter, put it inside the AeroPress cap, make sure it sits in there, simply locks on to the brew chamber, and I'm just going to put that on top of my cup. I'm just going to use my measuring beaker just so that y'all can see the coffee as we press through there. All right, I'm just going to put that there. In the original recipe, in the instructions, there's no recommendation to rinse and preheat. I consider it a best practice and try to do it whenever possible. Very few exceptions. Some of the Kalita paper products, they come pre-rinsed, so you don't have, or kind of pre-rinsed there. They just don't need it. Anyway, best practice is to pre-rinse and preheat your vessel. All right. Since I'm doing that, what I also want to do is I want to make sure to pour out the wastewater. And if you ever wonder why we preheat and rinse the paper filters, taste your rinse water. If you taste paper in the rinse water, you're going to taste it in your coffee. All right, so we'll set that on top of our brew device, or on a brew vessel. And I'm going to take the AeroPress funnel, set that on top here. Otherwise, I tend to make a mess. I went ahead and I measured out 19 grams of coffee. I don't know if you can really see it very well there. We'll try to get it in the shot. I went a lot finer than my normal cup. My normal cup is drip grind, something coarse. On a Baratza grinder, I'd usually be hitting kind of anywhere from a 16 would be the finest, then maybe a 22 or 24 if I went something more coarse, like on a Clever where we have a controlled drip, and also much more coarse for my typical AeroPress. But following Alan Adler's original recipe, we would do that. The modification I made there was I measured instead of using the scoop. The original AeroPress recipe just says to do 1 scoop per serving. Awesome. I like to just put in 19 grams for my standard 10-ounce diner mug serving. All right. I'm also going to go ahead and use a scale to weigh the water just for reference. But when I fill the water in here, I'm only going to fill it just above the number 1 that's imprinted on the AeroPress. After I add water, I'm going to immediately start my stirring agitation. I need to move that there and need to put this here because we're going to be pressing on that instead of on the scale. Never press on your scale. It's the fastest way to buy a new one. All right, let's go ahead and we're tared, and let's add our. I let it splash, and that is 73 grams of water for those who are keeping track. And then we're just going to make sure everything gets wet. With this really fine grind, we have very little drip through. If you followed my brew recipe, Alan always rests his hands like this on it. I think the other thing is great. Just like lays it right on his forearm and just kind of leans on it. In my original recipes, using the coarse ground coffee, it provides very little resistance, so we tend to get a lot of drip through. All right, I'm just going to push all through. I'm just going to go and compress this all the way through until I hit the bottom. There we are. We've made an AeroPress. And what we have, the beauty of the original recipe is you can get in and out in under a minute. It's a fast cup of coffee. There's some foam on top of there. It's not crema, and this is not espresso. With espresso, you really need to have something that'll apply a higher pressure. Espresso machines use pumps to apply high pressure. There are a few devices where mainly you can use a lever action to apply higher pressure. But the AeroPress, we're looking at a rubber seal on a plastic chamber. We're not going to be able to get those high pressures for true espresso, so I always just call this just espresso-esque. All right, so from here, should make a note, the coffee I'm using today is batter from Bronson's Guatemala El Volcan. You can find this on our website, naturally, batdorfcoffee.com. What we have here, this can be either a beverage in itself. We can just pour it into our little espresso cup and enjoy it as a straight espresso. Or we can add it to our regular cup. Get that in there too. That has good flavor. Look pretty intense. It's very dense, very concentrated. Good. From here, I have my intense beverage. I can add some warm milk. Maybe on the stovetop would heat some up, or in the microwave if you're so inclined. And you can make a latte, which really would be not so much in quotes, it'd still be a cafe latte, coffee and milk. There are different things you can do to froth milk at home. A whisk on a stovetop, and then in a French press type thing, you can use that to plunge up and down rapidly, and it'll create some froth. I like to simply top it off. Since I use 19 grams of ground coffee going into it, I know that will pull out just enough flavor to flavor up my 10-ounce coffee mug. So I now have the same basic idea as an Americano. A good cup of coffee. It's pretty hot. So, original recipe, fine grind, not as fine as espresso grind, definitely not so fine as Turkish. Single paper filter. I like to give it that pre-rinse. Drop in your grounds, add just enough water, just above the one, which today was about 73 grams. Rapid stir for about 30 seconds and then go straight into your plunge. Water temperature. In the original literature, in the instructions that come with the AeroPress, Alan Adler recommends using water down in the range, I believe, of 175 to 185. Definitely cooler than we do for any sort of specialty coffee association recommended kind of industry standards. Industry standard is water contacting the coffee 195 up to 205 degrees. Given the very fine grind, you can get away with cooler water, especially since we're going to give a lot of agitation. That stirring, every time we stir, every time the water moves around those particles, more flavors are getting pulled out, and that's what we're going to see happening there. The other thing that that motivated that lower temperature with Adler's recipe was that he was using an incredibly dark roast coffee. It's probably arguably darker than our Italian roast. Our Italian is our darkest blend, or darkest roast. When you roast darker, the longer the coffee is, the green coffees are exposed to heat, and in the roasting process, the pores open up more. The structure opens up more. And as those structures open, the flavor compounds have larger doorways, larger gateways to migrate outward into the water. So it takes less water energy. So given Adler's proclivity toward the incredibly dark roast, the lower water temperature is absolutely appropriate. I need to go to low battery mode on my phone. There we go. All right. This is a great cup of coffee. I love how fast it is. You do lose when you're diluting down to this volume, you lose a little bit of flavor intensity, which is why for my day-to-day cup of coffee, I use the same doses, the more coarse ground coffee with a longer steep time and some good agitation. So that is the original AeroPress recipe. You can find an AeroPress at our website. If you don't have one, just check out batdorfcoffee.com. Still have complimentary shipping for the standard shipping on orders above $30. If you buy a brewer, I believe we're still running the special where that will get you a discount on a bag of Dancing Goats, our house blend. Dancing Goats would be a fantastic coffee to start learning how to use something like the AeroPress. It's a very, very dynamic coffee, easy to use. Good morning, Tia. Hope you're staying safe and dry down there. Cheers. Good to see everybody. Good cup of coffee. Good AeroPress, little fun brewer. That's it. Have a great week. September is my most favorite month of the year, so I'm looking forward to September. See everybody.